Jesus asked his disciples, "Have you understood all this?" Today, these little parables of Jesus beckon us to pause and reflect on the hidden kingdom of heaven. Perhaps it's not some ideal place up in the sky. Perhaps it is found right here in the midst of the mess of life and one another. In Jesus' time, the little mustard seed that grows so mightily into a tree was considered a weed, an invasive species. Most people would pull it up to get it out of their gardens and burn it. Yet even the little weed, when it grows, becomes a haven of shade in the heat and a place of rest for the birds of the air. The yeast or leaven added to flour to make bread was created by setting a piece of bread aside to spoil. And it was tricky to get it right. Not spoiled enough, the flour wouldn't rise. It would be worthless. But if the starter was too spoiled, everyone could get food poisoning. It could be fatal. But spoiled just right, the 3 measures of flour would be transformed into enough bread for a large gathering, even a wedding party. So what are these little parables saying to us? So if we look back to the Genesis reading, we have Laban and Jacob. And we know that Jacob is a grasper, always desires what belongs to others. He's deceived his father. He's on the run from his brother, having stolen his birthright. But now he's encountered this beautiful woman, and he would like to marry her. He goes to her father Laban, makes a deal with him, 7 years labor for her hand in marriage. But on his wedding night, Laban deceives Jacob. He takes his eldest daughter and puts the veil on her. Jacob marries Leah, and he doesn't realize it because it's dark and she's wearing this veil. And the next morning he awakes and there's Leah, not his betrothed, Rachel. He goes to Laban and confronts him. So Laban says, live into the wedding week, work 7 more years, and you can have Rachel. In that encounter, Laban marries off his daughters, ensures their security, gets what he wants, because he has the son-in-law who's doing a lot of free work for him. And Jacob goes from being a pauper who is on the run, who has nothing, to being someone of wealth with 2 wives, lots of animals. His wives' nurses, their lives have just expanded, all of their lives. And we can say that's based on a lot of corruption, but just look at what came out of it. When I look at the collect for today, O God, the protector of all who trust in you, without whom nothing is strong, nothing is holy, increase and multiply upon us your mercy, that with you as our ruler and guide, we may so pass through things temporal, that we lose not the things eternal. So we have all this temporal outside stuff, but the eternal, that is deep within our souls. And I've said it more than once, human beings are like hidden gems. They're complex. Each one has the potential to grow from the humblest of beginnings, to mature through the corruptions of life, and develop into wondrous beings. God sees each of us as we truly are on the inside. It is we who do not often see the internal truth of who another is. We only see that clay encasement. And you know this story. I've said it before. A man was exploring caves by the seashore. In one of the caves, he found a canvas bag full of a bunch of hardened clay balls. It seemed someone had rolled clay balls and left them out in the sun to bake. And they intrigued the man, so he took the bag out of the cave with him, and as he strolled along the beach, he would throw the clay balls one at a time into the sea as far as he could. And he thought little about it until he dropped one of the balls, which cracked open and revealed a beautiful precious stone. Excited, the man started breaking open the remaining clay balls and found that each one contained a similar treasure. And he found thousands of dollars of worth of jewels in the 20 or so clay balls he had left. And then it struck him that he had thrown away maybe 50 or 60 of the clay balls with their hidden treasure into the sea, and had missed a golden chance to make so much money, to find the gems within. It's like that with people. We look at someone and maybe even ourselves, and we see the external clay vessel, which doesn't look like much from the outside. We see the clay ball exterior and we discount them as less important than someone more beautiful or stylish or well-known or wealthy. But we have not taken the time to find the real treasure hidden inside that person by God. Everybody is unique. There is treasure in each and every one of us. And if we ask God to show us that person the way he sees them, then the clay begins to peel away and the brilliant gem begins to shine forth. So please, recall these parables are witnessing what the kingdom of heaven is like. You know, the next three parables are about hidden treasures, finding something, burying it again, buying the field, finding the pearl, selling everything to buy that one pearl. And so I tell you another story of an old hermit who was once invited to visit the court of the most powerful king of those times. I envy such a saintly man who is content with so little, says the ruler sadly. I envy your majesty, who is content with even less than I, responded the hermit. How can you say such a thing when this entire country belongs to me, said the offended king. For precisely that reason, the hermit answered. I have the music of the celestial spheres. I have the rivers and the mountains and the whole world. I have the moon and the sun, because I have God in my soul. Your Majesty, on the other hand, has only this kingdom. And how do we come to recognize the hidden treasure? Perhaps we simply need to pay attention. Perhaps we have to live into the corruption of the moment in our own selves and realize that there is something more happening, that there is a greater way. There is a way to touch into God. And we might see it in someone else. So another story. This is of a wise woman who was traveling in the mountains and found a precious stone in a stream. The next day she met another traveler who was hungry, and the wise woman opened her bag to share her food. The hungry traveler saw the precious stone and asked the woman to give it to him. She did so without hesitation. The traveler left, rejoicing in his good fortune. He knew the stone was worth enough to give him security for a lifetime. But a few days later, he came back to return the stone to the wise woman. "I've been thinking," he said. "I know how valuable this stone is, but I give it back to you in the hope that you can give me something even more precious. Give me what you have within you that enabled you to give me this stone." When I was in New York with my friend Sheila, I was the one who usually went out in the morning on the coffee run from the hotel. And I'd have to travel maybe a block or 3 or 4 blocks, depending on which Starbucks was opened. And one morning, as I was going out, there was a homeless gentleman sitting on a stair. He stopped me, and we talked for a moment. Then I went on and got our coffee. 2 cups, one for Sheila and one for me. And I came back, and I walked right past him. When I got to the room, I told Sheila about it, and she said, "Well, why didn't you give him one of the coffees?" Shamed in the moment, knowing that I had missed an opportunity to offer a kindness, to discover a treasure, to have a conversation. Each person in the world is corrupt in some way, yet even in their faults, there is redemption, beauty, and the kingdom of heaven dwells. How we perceive one another and the kingdom of heaven depends on our perspective. The blinders we put on, the business we hold close, whatever it is that prohibits us from dwelling in the kingdom of heaven. So think, reflect, grow. God is depending on you to be a little piece of heaven here on earth.